Party people, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a layout for the Paper Issues March Spring Parade hop, and the assignment for this layout was to make a monochromatic green layout. And when the assignment first came down, I was like, of course, that sounds like a great idea. Green's my favorite color. And then I sat down to actually make the page, and I was like, I have no idea what to do to make a monochromatic green layout. So whenever I don't know what to do, and I can't use a rainbow, because you guys know rainbow is my default setting, but I couldn't use a rainbow for this. So I decided to go for what I kind of know works, which is to mix mixed media and a cut file. So I pulled out my watercolors. I am not even going to pretend to say this because it's a Japanese watercolor brand and I will just ruin it. So I pulled out my watercolors and I made 4 green mixtures. I just mixed some of the greens that are in a row in this palette. I really like this watercolor palette because it has 36 colors. 4 of them are metallic, so there are a lot of options and you can obviously mix and match to make your own colors, and then there's a bunch of colors with different undertones. So I just pulled out a row of greens. It's that 4th row from the bottom, mixed it with a little bit of water on the palette, which comes in so there's like a plastic palette that comes in the watercolor palette that you can use as a way for mixing paints. And so I just had a mason jar full of water at the top of my desk, and I mixed it with some water as I went and just kept mixing the 4 colors and adding it as a wash to my background. I'm working on the Vicky Bouton's foundation paper. Just because that paper can take a beating, and I knew that I was throwing a little bit of water at this background. Now, I tried not to add too much water, so I'm keeping things nice and loose. I also want to get good color saturation, so I'm trying to make sure not to add too much water to the paint. I just need to add enough water to mix the paint, and I don't know if you saw this, but I used my distress sprayer to spray the paints to kind of loosen them up a little bit before I put them on my palette. And that just makes it easier to wake up the colors and move them around a little bit. And then I put a little bit of water on the palette before I added the paint. And again, this just helps the paint to move around a little bit. And you see I have those 4 big stripes of color. Again, I tried to go with, honestly, I don't scrapbook with green very often. So I thought this would be fun because, again, green's my favorite color. But because I don't scrapbook with green very often, it definitely felt like a little bit more of a challenge than I had signed up for. But I really like how this layout came out in the long run. But there were definitely a few places where I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep going. So I decided to add some texture into the background. And I'm using this stencil. Not sure where it's from, I'm sorry. I have the plans to keep my stencils labeled going forward so that if they are still on sale somewhere, I can link it in the description box, but I'm not sure where this stencil came from. But I decided to do some tone-on-tone stenciling in the background. And the reason I'm using a flower stencil, and there are so many flowers, is I'm scrapbooking a picture of me in some artificial flowers at Michael's. So I use Mowed Lawn, which is that like kind of lighter green, and then Evergreen Bough, which is that deeper, more saturated green. And I'm just using a blending brush and putting that in through the stencil onto my background. Because the stencil is kind of an open stencil, there are lots of different floral pieces, so I just kind of rotate the stencil as I'm blending it onto the background so I don't get the same flower cluster everywhere. I think this just adds interest and kind of makes it look a little bit more fun. You'll see it in the final pages. It's just kind of a little bit more in the background. At first I thought about adding modeling paste, but I didn't want to add too much white because I end up adding a bunch of white later anyway. And I thought the tone on tone would be a more subtle effect, and I'm really happy with how it came out. This is definitely something I'm going to do again on future layouts, especially when I decide to pull out a rainbow. I think it might be fun to mix a rainbow with tone-on-tone stenciling in the background. I think that might be really fun. So here I am arranging some layered flowers. And right about here is where I realized, I was talking to my husband as I was making this. Right about here is where I realized I only had 4 flowers, not 3, not 5, 4. And I do not work in even numbers. So one of these flowers actually got put away for another day because it doesn't make it onto this page. But this is a cut file from Paige Evans that I purchased in the Silhouette store. I have a lot of her layered cut files. I don't use them very often, so I thought this would be fun. So I pulled out a bunch of 6x6 pattern papers that were green. I literally sat in front of my pattern paper stash for like 15 or 20 minutes and just flipped through all of the paper packs until I found a bunch of green shades, and then I cut those layered flowers out on the green shades. So you see I have those really dimensional green flowers that have a bunch of colors in them. And the other thing I did was I cut some white flowers and some white leaves, and then I cut the backing on vellum so that they're transparent, so you can still see the watercolor through the flowers. This cut file is from the Cut Shop, and with the Silhouette Studio, what I did was I cut the white ones, and then I just ungrouped the individual flowers, took all of the individual pieces out of it, so it was just the outline, like the backing piece, and then I cut that on vellum, and I did the same thing with the leaves. That's really easy to do. You just, again, right click on the image, you ungroup it, and then you select all the inner pieces and take them out, and it's really easy to do so and gives you a really quick way to have backing pieces for your layered bits, so you're not fussy cutting them, because I do not enjoy fussy cutting. I know I talk about this all the time, but fussy cutting is not something that I enjoy doing. So when I use a cut file, if I can have my machine cut out the backing pieces for the cut file for me, it is even better, and I'm more likely to actually make something with the cut file in the long run if I can do that. So I just took a few minutes to back all of my pieces, to back my flower, back my leaves, and then I get my layout out and I get back to work. I decided to map my photo on 3 different papers. So 2 of them are kind of like a solid green, and then that last one you saw is more of a green and white stripe. And I'm trying to introduce white to break up all the green. Like, I know this is a monochromatic assignment, but I think with the interest of, I think for interest and for contrast and to kind of give your eye somewhere to rest, it makes sense to add a little bit of other colors to break it all up. So white feels really good. You'll see I eventually add a tiny bit of pink, and that's because in the picture that I'm scrapbooking, the flowers are pink and green. So I add a little bit of pink. And so what I decided to do with my white flowers on the vellum, so do you see like how the watercolor shows through the vellum, so it kind of looks like they're green in the background, but they're not? I thought that was pretty fun. But what I decided to do with my flowers is kind of arrange them in a diagonal across the page. So I put my photo down where I want it to go, and then I start creating kind of a wreath, but not really, because it's a diagonal. So I put like one flower on the left side, and then I just start adding things to the right side. And I wanted to keep the flow of the horizontal stripes, but I also wanted it to feel a little bit more diagonal. And part of the reason why I put the flowers going all the way to the right side of the page is because my title is also green, and I thought that by having some of the white flowers in the background, you'd be able to see the title a bit better. So here's my shape. You see I have it flowing. It's more of a diagonal line than just like going vertically or horizontally. And then I decide that the white looks a little bit too stark for me, so I try to add some ink splatters. And since I had my Distress Oxide still out on my desk, I just smushed Evergreen Bow back onto the craft sheet that I was working on, add a little bit of water to create some watercolor, and it takes me a few brushes to figure out what's going to give me the ink splatter that I want. And it's a really subtle effect. Like, it's not like crazy ink droplets that you see like from far away. It's a really subtle effect, but I think it helps to break up some of that white, because it just started looking a little too stark. Like, the contrast was just super high with the white flowers on the painted background. So by adding those few splatters, I think it breaks it up a little bit. And then I just start putting all my bits and pieces back on my layout. So I decided to only go with 3 of those layered flowers instead of the 4, because, you know, I can't work in even layers. And then for a few more embellishments, what I decided to do is pull out my junk journal drawers. If you watch my junk journal video, you will have already seen these bins from Target. These are some bathroom bins from Target. You can get them in the bathroom section. They are $1. They are clear frosted bins. Andrea from Retro Hit Mama put like the entire craft community onto this, but they kind of suction into each other, so you can kind of stack them. And so I keep all my junk journal supplies in them. And I have my junk journal supplies sorted by type of embellishments. I have all my hearts together, all my flowers together. Again, If you've seen my scrap therapy video, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I decided, since my embellishments were already sorted by group, it would be really easy to just go in and pull out a few things that I thought worked with the challenge. So I pull out some things that are mostly green, like that Love, Love, Love tag is from Ellie Studio. And then I pull out like a few things from Maggie Holmes, and I think a few things from Paige Evans. I pulled out that tag that had a little bit of the pink on it, just because there was pink in my picture. And I needed to break up that green a tiny bit. So I add a few pieces that are mostly green, but just have a hint of another color. And I think that really works to, again, break up some of that green and also to repeat some of the colors that are in my picture. And so now I'm just working on building my clusters. Now, if you've watched me embellish before, you know that I like some things on top of the photo and some things behind the photo, and that things at different heights and different layers. So I put that first flower down on the front, and then I add an ampersand, and then I use some foam to pop that die cut that says Wonderful You. I know for sure that that's from Paige Evans' Oh My Heart. Just because the colors and the sentiment just really reads Oh My Heart. So I know for sure where that came from. With my embellishments being mixed up in this container, sometimes I know where things came from and sometimes I don't. But there are a few things that I can place just because I've been scrapping with these designers for so long that I kind of know where some of these things come from. Like I can read a Maggie Holmes collection from a mile away. It's just, I'm obsessed with Maggie Holmes, so I can see it coming. So I use some foam tape. This is scrapbook.com, 1-inch foam adhesive, and I decided to prop my whole photo cluster on foam, and then I put another flower in the top left corner of my photo. I put a little bit of foam behind that one as well, just so everything is at the same height. And then I work on adding my title. So I first thought I was going to add some of those Chit Chat stickers. I don't actually end up using them, but I go with my title, and this is from one of the Pink Fresh collections. It's one of the newer ones. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was just the perfect color, and it said Live in the Moment, and it was the perfect title for this spread. Because it's monochromatic, some of the title does get a little bit lost in the background, which is why I wanted to put some of those white flowers going a little bit further over. In person, you can read it a lot better than you can see it in the picture, but it says Live in the on top, and then the second line is Moment. And I just use my T-square to kind of make sure that things are lying straight. And then I pop another one of those flowers right in the middle of the title. So now I have 3 of the flowers across my spread. And pretty much the rest of the process is self-explanatory. Like, I do put down some enamel dots, but I do want to talk to you about the hop a little bit. So it's called the Insta Spring Parade, and there are 40 of us that are going to be sharing monochromatic green layouts today. It's a mix of the Paper Issues design team and a few people who just really like the Paper Issues brand and are members of the Facebook group. So one of the design team members organized this really cool hop. So if you go to my Instagram page, you will see close-ups of this layout, and you will also see instructions on who to follow to get to the rest of the hop. So it works the same way any kind of YouTube hop works or an Instagram hop works. I will have the person who's in front of me and the person who's behind me linked in my post, so you can go ahead and it'll cycle all the way back to the last person, and then you can cycle to the beginning so you can see all the layouts. I think monochromatic green was a really interesting challenge because that's not a color that you see people scrapbook with a lot. Monochromatic pink or monochromatic blue, I think, are definitely trends that we've seen before, but having this much green on a page is not something that I've seen before, which is why it was a real challenge for me. So I'm actually really interested to see what other people come up with for the hop. So again, you can head to my Instagram feed to follow through with the rest of the hop and see what the rest of the people are up to. And of course, if you do decide to go to the Paper Issues shop and purchase anything, don't forget to use my code TAZHI, TAZHI, to save 20% off your purchase. I love that Cassie does that because 20% is a lot, and that gets you really, really far. So now I'm just adding a few enamel dots across my page. You saw I did that thing that I do on almost all my layouts, which is where I cut a little bit of paper out and distress the edges and then add some colored cardstock to the back. I think it just helps the layout feel more finished and feel framed when that's going on with the picture. So it's something that I really enjoy doing. And so I add, again, 3 sets of 3 enamel dots because I like working in threes. One on top of my photo, one underneath my photo, and then one underneath my title. And I decide I want to add a little bit more texture to this page. So I go digging into my stash of puffy stickers. I am working on reorganizing my craft room so that it works for me and so that it makes sense. And so I currently have all my puffy stickers in one place, and it's on my desk right in front of me. So I grab my stash of puffy stickers and I pull out some that I think make sense. So I put down one from Pink Fresh Studio that's also a green sticker. And then I pull out this pack from Crepe Paper Journal Studio, and I thought about adding a few flowers to repeat that pink, but then I figured that would just be too much color. So there was this one bird that was the perfect color of the green in my background. So I add that on top of my star and call it done. So you guys, that completes my monochromatic layout for the spring Insta Hop with paper issues. I hope you enjoyed this layout. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're so inclined to let me know what you think about this challenge. And don't forget to head over my Instagram to see what other people are making and to join in with the hop. So that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Until next time, keep it crafty and have the best day, and I will see you around. Bye!